nchi yetu ya Kenya tunayoipenda, tuwe tayari kuilinda na tujenge taifa letu. Ndio wajibu wetu. Kenya istahili heshima, tuungane mikono pamoja kazini, kila siku tuwe na shukrani.
The EAC and
Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Uzalendo pia mshikamano viwe msingi wa umoja wetu, na tulinde uhuru na amani, mila zetu na desturi zetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Viwandani na hata mashambani, tufanye kazi sote kwa makini, tujitoe kwa hali na mali, tuijenge jumuiya bora. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
welcome all of us to this meeting. Physical participants and our online participants, most welcome. And in our program, we want to do a quick introduction. We want to know exactly who is with us in the physical present. Our online participants can use the chat room to be able to share your personal credentials, and our IT team will be able to capture all the information and continue communicating with each one of us. For purposes of housekeeping, the washrooms are next, for those who are with us, they're next to the reception. We have washrooms next to the reception. We will go down all the way to find them, and the team should be able to direct you as appropriate. So at this point, I want us to do a quick introduction, and if you allow me, I think we shall start from my immediate right here. Give us your name and the organization that you represent.
Good morning. My name is Mashenti Masingira. I work for Collaborative Center for Gender Development. Feel very welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate as each one of us. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Melinda. I work for the State Department for East African Community and Regional Development. Thank you.
Let's appreciate Israel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Nyambo. I'm with Kidney. I'm with them.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ada Omaka. I work with the Regional Center for Gender Equality. I'm the Programs Administration Officer, so I ensure that the programs flow in efficiency.
Yes, that's what we call personal brand. But let people know you, right? Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Nathan. I'm a research analyst. I've been working with CCGD Development.
Thank you for this.
Morning, everyone. I'm Khalifa Sadiq Hussain from the State Department of Gender, that is for Ministry of Public Service, Gender, Senior Citizens Affairs, and Special Programs. I'm a gender officer.
Thank you. Now we know or we are well taken care of. In case we have issues, we can see the government is here.
Good morning, everyone. This is Social Officer. I work with the State Department for
Thank you so much. That's a proud that great is the one that puts the lifeline for East African community, and I think we are well taken care of. Any issues, I know she'll be able to help us.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Champion Canada. Very specific as a office of Bungoma County, social profession.
Say, come on, which county? Bungoma County. Thank you. Let's applaud the county government. Let's go to the mic closer so that because we are capturing it.
So good morning.
You can remove the mask when you are speaking.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Piero. I am a research fellow at the University of Nairobi, Medical Performance Hub. We work with CCGD. We are partners with CCGD and the Ministry of East African Community, especially in North Mchabia and this work in Busia and other counties.
Thank you very much. Let's applaud the university, data-driven research and project implementation. Very good.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Florence Tongi. I work with the Commission on Administrative Justice and also with the Ombudsman and the Director of Corporate Investigations and Legal Services.
Thank you. Let's applaud. Let's appreciate her.
Good morning, everyone.
Put the mic closer.
My name is Agnes Oldi. I lead JAV at the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ruben Waso from the University of Nairobi. Women's Economic Development.
Thank you, Waso. I know he has his capacity in terms of research. If you have something, you can talk to him. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maurice Odhiambo. I'm the chair of the East African Civil Society Organization Forum, the Kenya chapter. I'm also a consultant.
Thank you, Maurice. I know he's good in negotiation and peace. I work with him at the EAC region, so I can coach.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Omengari. I'm from Kenyatta University Women's Economic Empowerment Hub. I'm a research associate in charge of policy and advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you,
Professor Ngare.
Yes, Professor? Yeah, thank you. Let's applaud the academia. That is my alma mater. I went to school at KU. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Francis Kalini. I'm a youth development officer from the State Department for Youth Affairs and the Ministry of ICT, Innovations and Youth Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you. That is my first ministry that I worked in when I joined the mainstream government. Thank you. Let's applaud the youth.
Hamjambo nyote. Naitwa Stephen Jalanga kutoka Wizara ya Elimu at the head of Youth and Government Training. Thank you. I've worked with Mr. Kaheru and I'm always mazingira in various forums. I'm meeting you for the first time. Asante sana.
Thank you. Let's applaud Jarenga, my colleague for many years.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Perpetual Mom, Communications Officer from the State Department for East African Community.
So I'm sure she's going to make sure that we are appearing in the in the TV because that's why she's here. So the event, I hope it's being covered properly.
Good morning. I'm Melinda Gates, Integration Officer from the State Department for EAC.
Thank you, Melina.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Roslyn Mukabana. I work for Nairobi Metropolitan Services. I head the Gender-Based Violence Unit and providing technical advice and support to the Director General's Office in acting capacity.
Thank you. That's a proud. I can see the Metropolitan is well represented. Thank you.
Good morning.
Well, my name is George Otilo Barasa. I work for State Department for Eastern Community, and I'm the person who has been the contact person for those invite letters. So if you got them late, maybe I'm to blame. But I'm happy you're here. And karibuni sana. And I see my colleague Sahia Jalenga is my immediate boss. But Jalenga, karibu sana. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Proud George, for doing that coordination work very well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Angela. I work with the Collaborative Center for Gender Development. I'm the communication assistant at the center. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I think what we have here is part of what we have been working behind the scenes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Prudence Jambi. I work as the Administration Support Officer at Collaborative Center for Gender Development. So feel free to reach out to me for any issue or queries that you might have during the workshop. I'm very much available to assist. Thank you.
Thank you, Prudence, for saying that when we need anything, we come to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maurice Dover, Communication Officer at the Center. All that is going on. Communication.
Thank you, Maurice. Let's applaud him for keeping in touch with the rest of the world.
And good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Churchill Amata. I work for the State Department for Cooperatives. We are based at NSSF. I know cooperatives are in all spheres of our lives. I'll be surprised if anyone here is not a member of cooperative society. It will be surprising. Maybe we'll engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Churchill. And I think he has said it correctly. I'm a member of a cooperative, so I can confirm what he has said is true. And it's the backbone of most of the SMEs, and I'm sure women can watch. Thank you very much.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
My name is Charles Mugombe. It's not like I'm based at Ministry of Defense, that is popularly DOD. I'm the gender focal person. We have a vibrant gender program, and currently we are actually undertaking what we call Women Economic Empowerment Activity with my colleague who happens to be here. We'll introduce ourselves. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Florence Mutai from State Department for Gender. I am from Socio-Economic Empowerment Directorate. I'm glad to join you.
Thank you. Let's applaud Florence.
Good morning. My name is Alfreda Gishoni. I work with the National Treasury as a budget finance officer.
Today I am happy. Even this, can we applaud her? Because we've been talking about funding, and she is here. When it comes to planning, nothing goes on in any government ministry if treasury is not involved. Let's appreciate her for being part of this process.
Morning. I'm Sharon Jambet from State Department of Housing and
I didn't hear, come up again.
I'm Sharon Jambet from from State Department of Housing and Affordable
Housing, thank you. So the affordable housing is well represented. We can be part of that process. There's a problem, huh?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Meg from the Ministry of Fisheries and Forestry, State Department for Livestock. State Department for Livestock.
Livestock, thank you. That is part of our current work. Yeah. Please put your mic closely because we have online handling. We have online participants and they only capture you through the system. Handling.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maimuna Sharif Mohammed, State Department of Training and Skills, Ministry of Education.
Skills training, thank you very much. Well, education is critical even at the EAC level.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Malamba Betty from the National Gender and Equality Commission. I'm a program officer. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Even she's very audible. Can we applaud her? Thank you so much. Very audible. Morning.
My name is Jacob Niwa. I work with ActionAid. I lead the project called Women Economic Empowerment Project, but I also double up as a program coordinator for advocacy campaigns. Thanks.
Thank you. I can see development partners are here in case we need resources. Rashid and the judge.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Phoebe Makumu. I'm from the Ministry of Energy. I'm the Director General and Development in the ministry. I ensure gender mainstreaming on all policies, programs, and projects in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you. So women who want to invest in the energy sector, there she is. Let's applaud her.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Veridiana Wasike. I'm in charge of partnership and resource mobilization at the National Youth Council. Thank you.
Thank you, the National Youth Council. And she's also spoken very audible. Can you appreciate her?
I am Jessica Cheng from the State Department for University, Education and Research, from the Administration Department, the focal person for gender.
Thank you, let's applaud her. I like the presence of the academia in this workshop.
Good morning, everybody. My name
Good
is
morning.
Caroline Lubuto. I'm from Innovations for Poverty Action. We are a research and policy non-profit organization.
Thank you, let's applaud her. She's also spoken very loudly. Now we know we have partners. Allow me to recognize the presence of Kenya Private Sector Alliance coming in, a very major partner, the people who help us to know exactly where we need to put our money. Let's applaud him and he gets into the hall. He's one of the partners of this very important program. Mr. Mainde, karibu.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Mainde with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Happy to be here. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Yeah, when we have any issues of business crisis, Mainde is here. He will tell us. Thank you very much. The person who is holding the mic, is there somebody who was coming when we were doing the introductions? Yes, there is one here.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Olivia Gambo. I'm the youth coordinator at Collaborative Center for Gender Development CCGD and also work with the YAMSO, East African Civil Society Organization Forum.
Thank you very much. Let's applaud her. Any other person?
Good morning. I'm Wilson Shimoli from the State Department of East Africa.
Thank you. Yes, we have one more person there.
Good
My name is Bill Melinda Gates from the State Department of East Africa.
Thank you. That is the secretariat that is managing our records in the registration desk.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Nasir Adiamo. I work for the State Department for East Africa Community.
Karibu. Let's appreciate her. Somebody else who have not introduced? Yes, there is one more there.
Good morning. I'm Sejati Stephen from the Department of Trade as the fund administrator from the County Enterprise Development Fund for Government. Tourism, thank you. That is one of the industry which was really hit by COVID, and I'm sure she'll be of great support to this. Let's applaud her. I can see there are more people coming in. We are doing introductions. You tell us who you are and institutions you work for and what you do. Karibu.
Hello, morning.
Morning.
I'm called Morris Ayaba from the EAC Secretariat in Arusha. I am in the Gender and Community Development Department.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My apologies for walking in late. My name is Sophia Opio from the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. I head the Youth and Gender Unit in the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. Water is life, and we are happy you are here. When women have issues with water, then we are well taken care of. Yes, more people coming.
Morning. My apologies for coming in late. My name is Nancy. I'm CC for Finance for Pele County, representing my colleague CC in charge of trade is away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, good morning. My name is Oscar Lassi from State Department of Livestock, Kajiado County. I work under a project called Regional Pastoral Livelihood Resilience Project as the county project team lead.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate the country. Kajiado is well represented and one of the largest counties that neighbor our sister partner state, Republic of United Republic of Tanzania.
My name is Chineros Minani. I'm the principal Gender and Community Development at EAC Secretariat. I thank God for being here because we arrived some hours, but we are very strong and we hope for these discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's applaud Jim Rose. She didn't say she's the head of the gender sector. She's overall in gender in East Africa. So if there are issues we want to raise, what is the issue? This is the officer. This is the lady, the strong lady who is handling that particular document at the EAC Secretariat from our sister country, the Republic of Burundi. Let's applaud her. Yes, next.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Regan Bakari from the Alpha Initiative, CSO based in Arusha, Tanzania, which also works closely with Gender Department, East African Community Secretary.
Thank you, Jim Rose, for bringing up to be part of this process. And from which republic? From which country?
Tanzania.
So, Republic of Tanzania. Thank you so much. Any other person who has come in and we want to recognize your presence? If you have not introduced yourself, please up your hand. I think we are good to go. I think the others will find us on the way as we proceed. There is one person who has just been moving around with the mic. We do not know this person. There is a stranger in the house.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Oloa Diambo. I work for the East African Civil Societies Organizations Forum, the Access of Kenya chapter. I work as the national coordinator. Welcome, and we thank you for honoring our invitation. Also, for those who have been asking, the Wi-Fi password is Manzoni in small letters. Just Manzoni in small letters. Thank you.
Asante sana. I want to give this opportunity to our online participants. You can be able to speak. Our IT team is ready. I want to give this chance to our IT team to facilitate the online participants to introduce themselves. Over to the IT department for introduction.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill from Collaborative Center for Gender and Development. I hope you can hear me.
Thank you. Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Let's applaud that participant.
Good morning. I'm Diana Wadiga from JPAL, or the Abdulatif Jamii Poverty Action Lab, and I'm happy to be in this session today. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Let's applaud that participant. Next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tabitha Kimanzi. I work for United Nations Women, Kenya Country Office, under the Women Economic Empowerment Unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabitha. UN is with us here, UN Women. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next. Yeah. I think we are good. I think as the others join, we will be able to allow them to introduce themselves. At this juncture, I want to invite one of the very important persons in this program. That is the Collaborative Center has been at the center of coordinating this program. So I would like to give this opportunity to the person who heads this particular docket so that he can share his opening remarks as we coordinate another activity with one of them who will be speaking later from the ministry. So let's put our hands together as we invite Mr. Masheti Mashingira to share his thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mwani Kahelu. It's always a pleasure to have you be master of ceremony and take us through these sessions. And the first thing is just to welcome all of you, and I'm extremely happy on behalf of the consortium of government and other kinds of agencies that organize this forum for accepting our invitation and turning up. And the first thing is just to tell you a little about Collaborative Center for Gender and Development. It's now over 25-year-old policy advocacy, civil society, meaning NGO organization, working in Kenya from 1996. And our policy advocacy is for gender equality. So anything that leads towards gender equality, closing the gender gap, counters in. But then we also do that ensuring that no one is left behind, meaning that as CCGD is also concerned about discrimination, we ensure that in our advocacy, we don't discriminate. Sometimes this is a bit complicated complicated because some people say affirmative action programs are discriminating. Yeah, but that is when you don't exactly know, because affirmative actions come up to close a gap. So there is already discrimination that has happened, and you're trying to make one group catch up with another one. So CCGD supports affirmative actions to ensure that there is equality and equity. But in supporting these affirmative actions, we are not discriminating against any group. The other thing that I've mentioned that is of interest in this forum is to do with doing advocacy that is evidence-based. For instance, the affirmative action programs that I've mentioned in Kenya, in East Africa, all over the world, are based on some evidence. Okay? There is usually evidence that there is a gap. There is usually some evidence that something has happened, in most cases historically, that has led us to question. And there is even a calculated standard time. For instance, most affirmative action programs don't last for more than 20 years. And they're normally monitored for over periods of time. So within 20 years, it's usually calculated that something will have happened to close the gender gap. So evidence is also one of the things that we are kind of firmly to. Now, this leads us just to mentioning some of the people we work closely with. From policy advocacy, we all know that policies are made by governments, okay? I sometimes tell my civil society colleagues that you cannot say you're doing policy if you're not talking to the government, okay? Because government makes policy, okay? Those of us who are not directly in government can only advocate, can lobby, can persuade, can use all means, including research and data collection, to be able to bring to the attention of the respective government policy-making organs that there is an issue either with existing policy or there's a need for other policies. So in this room, we have different kinds of government agencies, actually quite a good number that have already introduced themselves. We also have Mr. Mainge Kepsa, okay, from the business community. So the business community, of course, is not government, but it is an interested party, just like civil society, in what sort of policies come up. And for this workshop, Kepsa is a direct kind of a stakeholder, because we are talking about economic empowerment of women and have programs on this. So this is what has brought us together, but also with Kepsa, we are implementing programs that promote public-private dialogue, okay? As I started off in policy making from a very simple or simplistic point of view, you cannot make policy without some kind of dialogue, okay? People have to talk to each other. People have to understand each other. I always joke that civil society and government are not exactly always friends, okay? The relationship is getting better, okay? Like in Kenya, after the 2010 constitution, the constitution put in place measures of public participation, of ensuring that government and the civil society and private sector talk on a continuous, systematic basis. So Kepsa has been a very, very big part of this process, assisted in a big way by Trademark East Africa, of ensuring that these mechanisms of structured dialogue between civil society, private sector, and government, kind of in particular policy departments, take place. But apart from Mainge and Kepsa just facilitating PPD, we have also been engaging with different government departments in practical kind of ways of engaging, like I'll mention the small business cross-border women on the different borders, in particular Busia, for instance, during the COVID-19 kind of situation. The situation has not completely corrected itself or been corrected, but Busia became an emergency East African crossing point. Okay, so this is one place where PPD now became practically moving to Busia, and from a civil society perspective, from a government, Mwangi and the Minister of East African Community, Minister of Trade and the other finance through Kenya Revenue Authority. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, that it is not just dialogue, talking, but it is also trying, when there is a crisis like the effects of COVID-19 management, we have to come together and go beyond just talking to ensure that something practical is happening. I will also mention the University of Nairobi. I already talked about evidence, and Kenyatta University, we have Professor Ngare in the room. We also have on the side of using the data in policy advocacy, our friend Jack from Action Aid. These are all partnerships in policy making, that we are looking for all opportunities to generate data, but not let this data get packed on university shelves, okay, in libraries, or nowadays it's usually on the web. Have the data move from the web to this kind of forum where the different stakeholders can be able to discuss it, and then moving forward, okay, in terms of improving existing policy, and also ensuring that particularly groups that have been discriminated in the past, and our policies have been put in place, like there are policies in Kenya on women economic empowerment, there are policies and laws to protect marginalized groups. These types of forums, the intention is that this actually happens. We also have State Department for Gender in the room. For the particular kind of conversation we are having now on gender programs, a decision was made to point the spotlight on government departments, county and national government departments, other than the State Department for Gender. Why is this? It was not discriminating against State Department for Gender. It was just recognizing that, first of all, everybody knows that the State Department for Gender and the Ministry of Gender deals with matters gender equality. They do oversight on implementation of gender programs, and they also coordinate. But there is a misconception among the general public, okay, that State Department for Gender is the one responsible, solely responsible for ensuring that we close the gender gap. Remember, I mentioned coordination, and I also mentioned oversight, okay? This means that you oversight work that is being done in other sectors of government. And when he was recognizing the presence of Treasury, the presence of Ministry of Water, the presence of ICT, it means that gender work, or work towards closing the gender gap, is being done in all those ministries. So the State Department oversights. So we decided to shed the spotlight on work that is being done in those other sectors at the county government level, and also in ministries, departments, and agencies at national government level. Through the Ministry of East African Community, we also got initiatives from the Arusha, from the East African Community Secretariat, which is regionally the other link in terms of policy, okay? As a region, the Secretariat of the East African Community, first of all, has a role of ensuring that the region knows what is happening. So it's very important, and thank you, the generals and colleagues from Arusha, that the region should be able to know that these are some of the things that are going on in Kenya. These are some of the dialogues. This is some of the progress, the challenges that are going on in gender. The region also has another very, very important role. There is supposed to be a consensus within the region, and there are structures, different kinds of structures of the East African community that ensure that there is ongoing dialogue among government delegations to set up what you may call, in a way, agreeable standards, okay, of, since we are talking about gender and non-discrimination, that there are agreeable standards of gender or women's empowerment all over the region, so that when you talk about women empowerment in Uganda, someone in Kenya understands what you're talking about, someone in Burundi understands what you're talking about, and there is a document, there are policies, there are laws, at some of them in process, at the regional secretariat, the East African Legislative Assembly, same also with the laws, the East Africa Court of Justice, that speak to the whole of East Africa. Since the second East African community is not very old, okay, this is a process that is going on, and these conversations go on from time to time. So we have a very good representation in terms of policy organs, right from the region and locally. We also have development partners, okay, people who assist us with resources, and we are here because different kinds of development partners were able to pass resources through some of us, through KEPSA, I mentioned Trademark East Africa. We have Africa Development Bank. There is somebody lined up to say something who have a lot of investment in infrastructure, and they have a vibrant policy on women economic empowerment, and they are looking forward to learn from this workshop, okay, lessons about East Africa, but also lessons that would assist them in their own women empowerment kind of initiatives. For those who don't know, this year they have already issued 2 calls for proposals for women economic empowerment initiatives that are open to mainly the Commission. They were part of the discussions and part of the work that we did. And just to mention, I know we are all familiar with it, they have a very important role, constitutional role. The Commission ensures that there is gender equality. It has a constitutional mandate to monitor government sectors, departments, ministries, give reports to the National Gender and Equality Commission. The Commission makes recommendations, has forums, works with different kinds of agencies, from civil society organizations to government agencies to regional bodies like the East African Community and so on and so forth, to ensure that there is accountability, okay, that what is provided for within the policies is actually done, okay, and also working with the different ministries. If there's something that is not being done, ensuring that whatever this is done. So this is what this conference is all about. We don't want to leave anyone behind. Now, coming down to what we have here, I started off by a disclaimer about non-discrimination on the part of CCGD. So white women, okay, particularly in Kenya, a lot of people are getting tired, they say, about the emphasis of women, mostly men, but occasionally you meet also women who are angry, okay, about the girl child, that we have done enough, okay, can we now focus on the boy child? So why are we still talking about women? So I'll very quickly just give about 3 reasons. The first one is the numbers of women in business in Africa. Let me not just speak about Kenya. Africa is unique in the world, the whole world, at having more women actively involved in business. Of course, unfortunately, the lower down you go the business ladder, but fortunately, the lower down ladder serves the biggest majority of people in terms of population. So if you're talking about the impact of businesses directly to the hearts and souls of people involved, you can argue statistically that the businesses done by women, even though they are lower down the business ladder, okay, impact directly on the greatest part of the population, okay? The implication for development is one has to make deliberate, systematic, well-planned, and backed up by data efforts in policies to ensure that this sector is productive. Okay, first of all, that it doesn't die, because it would mean a very big part of the population will die. Households are going to be directly affected by lack of support for this. The other reason to the macro and micro economy is that if you do not give support to this, it means you are losing out on very big numbers of businesses and business people, which means ultimately when you don't support business, you lose the income that you get from there, okay? So this is the first reason why women, just the numbers, the sheer numbers of women, for instance, involved in trade. The most conservative estimate, cross-border trade, is about 70%. If you look at the other trades, it's similar. If you go to any market visually, any market in Africa, okay, the most visible people trading at those markets in West Africa, it's almost 100%, okay, are women, okay. So this is why the conservative estimate of 70. The second one, and very important to Mainge and business people, is the return on investment, okay. There is evidence that if you invest in businesses by women, when you invest in women, there is a bigger return on your investment, okay? Business is sustained by returns on investment. So if a bank lends money, okay, and they make a profit on it, they are sustained in keeping in business by the fact that they can lend the money and people can repay, okay? So when people don't repay, banks go out of business. So if there is no return on investment, it means we are not going to develop. So all the evidence that we have shows that you may not lose, okay, when you invest in women. Very quickly, I'll tell you an experience of, there used to be a micro enterprise, it changed the name, it's still there, called WECs in Western Kenya. It was started by Care International as an NGO. When Care started it, we were part of a research team that worked with Care then. When Care started it, their target was about 60-something% men, okay, because it was some time back when it was still thought that men were much more capable of doing business than women. The target was 60-something% men and 30-something% women, which is what they meant in terms of recruiting the people who are going to be part of the microfinance kind of company. When we did the evaluation, 2.5 years later, the midterm evaluation, practically at the recruitment level, the 60, roughly 30-something% numbers had been met. In terms of the staying power, okay, there are people who were still in the program, because what was happening, Care was advancing some money. You save a little, and then Care advances you money to invest based on your saving. So what happened is that a very big percentage of the money who were advanced the money disappeared, okay? They did not repay, and they were no longer in the program. This means there was no return on the investment in men, or very little return. 99% of the women who were advanced the money repaid, and they had expanded their businesses. So after the midterm evaluation, the statistics changed to 60% women in WECO, okay, to 30-something% men. Within 2 years, it had changed. Like right now, WECO has a different name, but the last data that I looked at, it's 80-something% women participation. Do you get what I mean in terms of return on investment? Okay, so in a very, very business way, you might not do very good business without investing in women. Lastly, which is what we are here about, but I have to mention it, there is a supportive legal policy kind of environment from the State Department, from the region, in terms of supporting women economic empowerment for the reasons that I mentioned. And this is why women. So I'll end my presentation at this point, thank you again for turning up and looking forward to very good deliberations. Thank you very much.
I would like to invite the State Department for East African Community first to share their thoughts as we prepare to go regional, where we shall invite the chair of EAC. So I want to invite George Otieno on behalf of the Ministry of East African Community. Let's put our hands together as George comes in, because we've been putting this workshop together jointly with CCGD. Please have the floor.
Thank you, Mwangi, so much. And I want to thank you, Masheti, for your opening and quite insightful remarks regarding our agenda today. Now, as Mwangi has already introduced me, I'm George from State Department for East African Community. Now, I will not say much other than just to thank you so much for turning up, for accepting our invite for this very important conference. I want to recognize the presence of all of you, those within the country and those without. I can see EAC Secretariat is well represented. Janos is here. Welcome, Janos. Maurice, welcome with your colleagues. Thank you so much, and thank the hotel for hosting us. I think I'm sure those who spend here have woken up feeling nice. I don't think there were any incidents, we would have heard about it. So now, I said I will not speak much because my peers will be talking to us. I'm sure he could be listening right now because he could have been here physically, but because of other engagements, he was unable to make it. But he'll be speaking to us at exactly 10:10. So mine is just to once again welcome you and remind you that, of course, women economic empowerment is our business, is our core business as a coordinating ministry. We are so much interested in this agenda, and there's so much that we do, we continue to do. And Mashiti has mentioned about our cooperation, collaboration, and we have in place a collaborative framework that indeed has given as an outcome this conference that we're having today. So indeed, we're excited that you're here, and we look forward to the outcomes from this conference that will eventually, in my belief, move the women away from this Mama Mboga status, where all the time they refer to as small-scale business, but they never grow. It becomes like a business. So we believe that from here, we will come up with better outcomes that will lead to the growth of these women traders and women generally. So thank you so much, Mwangi. As I said, PS will be speaking to us. Otherwise, karibuni sana, and I wish you all a very fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George, for taking your opening remarks for the government and mention that women must grow. And that reminds me of one important project which was run by ILO called GOWE. I don't know whether anybody is familiar with growth-oriented women entrepreneurs. I think this is where we need to go. We can't still remain down there. I work with that project, so I know, and I'm sure it's something we can borrow 1 or 2 leads. At this point, I would like to invite Maurice Odhiambo. Maurice Odhiambo is the one chairing the East African Civil Society Organization Forum Kenya chapter, the umbrella body in the EAC, I think he said, and I would like him to finish the others even as he shares his thoughts. Let's put our hands together for Maurice.
Thank you, Mwangi.
Mwangi likes saying good things about me, which is okay because that is how we managed to get on with life. That is how we managed to get on with our business, day-to-day business. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to be here, to be part of this conversation as the chair of the East African Civil Society Organizations Forum. And I'll just say a few things. The first one is really to appreciate all of us for being here. And as I think Machete said earlier, you know, we have all sectors of society represented here. I come from a civil society background, and of course I've had quite a few organizations represented here. And the EACs, of course, within the region plays a very important role as the voice of civil society. And so that is, it's very important that all these sectors are involved. So one is just to appreciate, and also specifically to appreciate the colleagues from Arusha. Jen Ross is looking at me. I know in her mind there's a lot of things going on. Just remembering all the engagements, the quarrels, and so many, you know, dynamics that happen within the spaces that we occupy. Of course, Morris and the other colleagues, I really appreciate all of you, and I know together we've done excellent work at the regional level. Definitely, obviously, I have to appreciate CCGD and my colleague Machete, whom we have worked together for many years, and CCGD has been the host for EACSO. And the partnerships that have emerged from all this have really helped us to forge forward in terms of the agenda, not only of regional integration, but also the key topical things that we have been engaged with, including the aspect of gender and development. Secondly, just to speak briefly, very briefly, so I've already said that the EACSO represents the voice of civil society in the region. EACSO is recognized through what we call the CDF, the Consultative Dialogue Framework, which we worked on with the colleagues from EAC, but also civil society across the region. And so this is a platform through which a lot of advocacy has happened. I know on gender, historically, we've had quite a number of processes ending up with the advocacy for a gender policy at the EAC level, advocacy for a gender protocol at the EAC level, and so on and so forth. And this is important not just here in Kenya, but you know, also at the regional level. So there have been a number of organizations, a number of initiatives that have come up to make this link between gender and regional governance, you know, to make sense to all the partners. So the EACSO then has all these chapters in the different countries. I think except for South Sudan now, and maybe once DRC becomes part of EAC, then we shall also be working hard to make sure that there is an EACSO chapter there as well. So that is the role of EACSO in short, and we really appreciate all the partnership that we've been able to couple together to carry out this work. Interest in gender for me goes beyond I just keep remembering the last time I was here a few years ago, I was a consultant for UNDP, and we were developing something called gender and social inclusion policy. So for me, it's also have a direct interest in questions of gender. And I think being part and parcel of this debate will also is also of value. We've talked before about evidence-based advocacy, which is what is usually encouraged, so that the product of advocacy then can serve the purpose for which it is aimed. And I know that many times there's a lot of skepticism about some of the products that we produce in terms of research. People think that this is just people with an agenda that they want to move forward. And of course, there's no problem with having an agenda, especially if it is one that is recognized not just nationally, but also regionally and internationally as a very key cog in questions of development. So I would just like to sign off at this point and really once again appreciate the partnerships, appreciate all the institutions involved here. And I'm very happy to see that quite a bit of the government departments obviously signifying that gender cuts across all issues of development in any one society. So thank you very much, and I personally look forward to a very healthy engagement today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. Thank you, everyone. I think we are listening too much, but we are together, you know. My standing up here is just, first of all, to thank you all for coming for this meeting. And I thank, first of all, the organizers for extending the invitation to East African Community Secretariat. This shows how much we are together, how much you care for the community to be together. You should organize it as a national event, but you wished it to be with us. We really thank you. And we thank you in general, the ministry in charge of East Affairs in Kenya, for always being with us. When I saw Mr. Kahenu here, I remembered a lot of things, a lot of work we did together, including what Mr. Odiambo said, to get our main tool we use in EAC, the gender policy. The ministry never left us, especially Mr. Kahenu. In all work, he was with us. So I was so happy to see him here again. It means the work he did was not in vain. The government is still counting on him and the partners the same. Allow me to thank the center which gathers here for the good work. As we said, Mr. Odiambo said that they advocate for this gender policy in EAC. May I extend this good achievement to thank this center for contributing so much to get a very good action plan for this policy. There was a very good contribution. If you read that action plan, you can really get somewhere and you can have a good journey for our women. So, Mr. Kaheno, I was talking about you. When I saw you, I remembered a lot of things we did together. Not only, gender or women, all areas we have. I just want to summarize what we deal with in the gender department. This is a department which has a lot of dockets, priority areas. We are dealing with a big component on women in business. And we also have the mainstreaming of gender in all organs and institutions of EAC. We deal with youth, children, persons with disability. We also deal with social protection when we pay attention to vulnerable groups. To mention one, our older people, we are all aiming there if we are blessed to get all. Also, we deal with community development, where we look at some projects to empower these different categories. And the concern of Mr. Odhiambo, stakeholders engagement. These are civil society, private sector, and other interest groups, to include the trade unions, to include employment associations, and so forth, women's associations, youth, children, whoever is a citizen of this community is allowed to be in that platform, as Mr. Odhiambo said, which is inclusive and which is there to implement consultative dialogue framework. So we have a regional dialogue committee which can organize all those. You will hear, or you've already heard about Secretary General's Forum. It's under those. So the groups I mentioned, they are there to organize all that the dialogue at regional, and we also have chapters at national level. So to just say a few things, we are guided by the treaty. And this treaty is really recognizing the important role played by women in regional integration. We are talking about gender equality and empowerment of women as at the center of the mandate of EAC. So you can see that we are talking the same thing. So in that treaty, we have two articles, 121, 122, which are talking about the role of women in business and in socioeconomic development. This is what is gathering us here. And as I said earlier, with support of various partners, civil society mainly, we had the main document we are using is gender policy, EAC gender policy. If you look at it, priority number 5, it talks about trade, business, and economic empowerment. And if it's gender policy, women are highly focused on, because as we know, this is the group of population we have, which has been known as lagging behind in many sectors of development, or many spheres of development. So we are paying attention on women, not because we are discriminating men, but we just want to make women to another level. As George said it, for me also, I emphasize on this, women empowerment is to take women from one level to another. We are not giving them money, but let us try with our knowledge to show them how to make money or how to deal with life in general. We are very soon starting competing in AFCFTA. So how are we preparing our women? In the region, it is known that women are highly involved in informal sector while doing business. They are called women in business. But which kind of business do they handle? Small business. Why are they all the time small? I say in the name of Jesus, they can go up to big business. Amen. So, from small to medium, our women can go and compete continentally. I think this is the main agenda we can think about. And for your own information, there is good news. EAC now has successfully, as you read it in our regional news, is now he has succeeded to be what? To be one of countries or blocks, because it negotiates as a block. It negotiates as a block. It really succeeded to be one of the blocks which successfully achieved the minimum requirements for category A, trading under AFCFTA. That's a very good news on our region. So let us all think in our mind, what can we do for our women who are highly involved in agriculture? Those are agricultural products that they will trade in. Pharmaceutical, and also other products that can be in that category. So we are talking about women empowerment. And the tools are there to utilize. What are strategies for us to compete with as EAC? What are strategies for us to compete with other RECs? Because our women, if you look at EAC as a region, we can really confirm that we are not at the same level with women in West Africa, with women in Southern Africa. Of course, there are some countries we can be ahead of, but as a region in general, if you are not talking about Kenya, you know how you are. You are so good in trading. You are so good in business, in everything. We thank God for this country because it can be a role model for other countries in the region. But we have other countries which are lagging behind. And we have countries which are joining the community. How are we preparing ourselves as a bloc to compete with other rates? The women empowerment, as we know, our women, not many are involved in other sectors than business. And the business they do is just survival. There is no savings, but it's possible we can help them using our capacity, our knowledge, and they get somewhere where women can say we are really empowered. Otherwise, we will talk. The empowerment we're talking about is not there. Coming up to what EAC is preparing for our women, we have tools that we can use as a region, as a country, because whatever we have in EAC is yours. We do nothing without the agreement with our partner states. We have a final draft of regional strategy for women, for promoting women in business for socio-economic development. That tool is a very good one we can use for us to compete in this coming trade, continental trade. We also have to help our women who are still trading within our region. The tool that was developed, again, we support with civil society and the other partners, simplify the guide for small-scale women traders, and service providers. Talking about this tool, I remember we had 2 good trainings in Busia. 2 of you were there. And we also have one in Nimule. And I rely on those reports from those trainings. I'm sure that if we use them properly, our women can trade from national level to regional, and from regional to continental. Is that where we are aiming? So let us start within, and we reach far. Yeah. We also have projects. One is still a draft that is to be finalized and be adopted. But we 50 million African women speak networking platform project. We all know it. The first phase has ended, but we finalize everything that is needed for having second phase. So from now, we are waiting for ADB to announce the coming of the second phase. We are waiting. There's nothing they are requiring from rates which are involved in this project. So we are all invited to use those tools, those platforms to train our women. And the other project we know is the empowerment of border communities through shared markets, modernized markets. And this one, I'm sure some of you are participating in meetings to finalize the document. This is another thing we must use. We need the markets at borders, and we need to improve those markets. Facilities, how are they for women and everything? I'm not going to enter into details. We have some challenges to use all these tools. We have some challenges to push this agenda. But tomorrow we have another presentation where we will talk about the gaps we have in EAC. So I'm not going to enter in details. This is what I wanted to tell you in a summary way. So as an EAC, we are once again thanking the organizers, the government, and everyone who was invited. Let us be together and strategize together. In this meeting, we can come up with tangible recommendations and implementable ones for our women in Kenya, in the whole region, because the reports from here, as we are here as EAC, we share with others. We need to learn from each other. So thank you so much for giving me this floor. I wish all of us very fruitful meeting and deliberations in this gathering. Thank you. May God bless you all.
I know the PS will be speaking at exactly at 10:15. So I will invite one more speaker as we prepare the stage. After that, then we'll be able to cut short so that he opens the meeting and then we can be able to proceed. That is, I want to invite, we have the University of Nairobi, we have representatives to share briefly. They'll have another chance to speak as we prepare for the PS to give his opening remarks, and then he'll give us the green light to continue with our workshop. Because at 15 minutes past, we shall be having our keynote speaker. I recognize our online participants. We have Sarah Luther, gender specialist from International Center for Research on Women. We have Jacqueline, Minister of ICT and Youth Affairs. We have Lynette from African Development Bank. They'll be sharing their presentations later in the day. And then we have Chikane from a CSO consultant from African Development Bank. So let's welcome our brother, Mr. Waswa. Waswa is an expert in research and with the impact of Nairobi Women Economic Empowerment Hub. We'll give him about between, because that's, is it 10 minutes?
Okay.
That's
Thank you so much, Marky, and thank you so much the conveners of this important stakeholders workshop and all the stakeholders that are present. My name is Waswa Ruben, and I'm here representing the Women Economic Empowerment Hub of the University of Nairobi. I'm standing in for Dr. Mary Bidi. I also bring greetings from Professor Wanjiru Kabira, who was engaged elsewhere, but she said that she is with us in spirit. Just about the Women at the University of Nairobi's Women's Economic Empowerment Hub. Briefly, what it does, it aims to contribute to evidence-based, and this has been repeated many times by the speakers that are here, to provide evidence-based for decision-making and implementation of policies and programs informed by what works for Women Economic Empowerment Hub. We focus on what works. If it doesn't work, we don't want to belabor there. You reduce the battles by focusing on what works. So the vision of our hub is a full realization of women economic empowerment, and our mission is to be a thought leader in producing cutting-edge, innovative, rigorous, and accessible evidence through research for impacting policy formulation, implementation, and upscaling for the full realization of women's economic empowerment. So in line of that, to provide the evidence-based information for policy implementation, we've carried out several projects in the country. One of them is affirmative action funds and entrepreneurship. And our research question was what works in affirmative action funds. We're looking at ACO, WESO Fund, WEV, Youth Development Fund, and the CGS, the Credit Guarantee Scheme. We have also looked at the center, we have also looked at women in formal and informal sector. We are looking at how the Employment Act has promoted women's participation in the formal economy. We are also focusing on childcare and women's work, looking at what are the effects of family-friendly legislations and policies and initiatives on women's participation at workplace, and also workplace both in informal and informal sector. Like, for example, we're also looking at trade, women in trade. We're also looking at women, and we have another project, another cluster project, which is dealing with the women's movement and self-mobilization for women economic empowerment. What has worked for women in the past and what we can be able to learn and as we go forward, where we're coming from and where we are going. And so those researches were done last year, and we have information, we are processing the information for dissemination. So we collaborate, we don't work alone, and we collaborate with government ministries. Among them is the Kenya National, of course, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is an organization in the government ministry. When we are doing research, one time my director told me that when women say something, sometimes they are not believed. So you have to say it 3 times before you are believed. Or you can work and collaborate with others who can be believed. So those of you who have read Chenua Achebe's book, Things Fall Apart, he said that, one of the proverbs, he said that because men have learned to shoot without missing, the naked bird has learned to fly without perching. So I remember when we were with the State Department for Gender in Mombasa, working on women economic empowerment policy, and I can see the representatives here. One of the information they were saying that they quote information from the national organization, it's Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, that is mandated to provide information for government action. So we have been working with them as they do the figures, as they grant the figures and draw the graphs. We also able to work with them and provide qualitative
research and answer questions which cannot be answered by the figures. We are also working with the Ministry of Public Service and Gender, under the State Department of Gender. We are also working with the Ministry of Finance and Planning, especially in the provision of the CGS credit guarantee scheme to women. And then we also working with the Ministry of East African Community. They're here, George is here, and with Mwangi who linked us, and Machete who linked us, of course, with the Ministry of East African Community. We are grateful for that. In academia, we are working with the Kenyatta University. They also have a similar hub at the Kenyatta University. In the civil society, we are working with Ground Trust. And of course, the biggest of them all is the Collaborative Center for Gender Development. Machete is working very closely with us, and Professor Ajiku Kabira, if he was the one who was speaking, he'll be speaking very much glowingly about Machete because they've worked together for a very long time. Then we also work with TechnoServe in SMEs and MSMEs. We also work with Action Aid. I have seen Jack. Yes, you were in Mombasa when you convened that meeting. And we also work with the Oxfam, especially in the analysis of the national budgets and county budget. We also work with banks. The banks that are implementing a credit guarantee scheme. There are about 7 banks, including Cooperative Bank, ECB, there is a Credit Bank, there is ABSA, and so there are 7 in total. So we are also working with them, and private sector organizations. So our presence, if Mangi, if I reach the limit, you can be able to, but I'm sure I'll be able to complete just in a few minutes. So our presence, we are in Tana River County, Wajir, Busia, Kitui, Vihiga, Kisii, Siaya, Uasin Gishu, Kajiado, Nakuru, Nairobi, Kiambu, Kirinyaga, and Nakuru. That's the counties where we have carried out research. We are also doing a collaboration, as I mentioned, with the CCGD on, and the objectives of the collaboration is to enhance access to childcare facility for cross-border women traders, increased participation for women in cross-border trade, increased awareness on the importance of change of norms, gender norms, so that men can also be able to take care of their children as women go to work or trade. Increased income for women traders, and that is the final one, because we all hear the word women, increased income and women's economic empowerment. We are also collaborating with the Ministry of East African Community and the CCGD, as a tripartite collaboration in providing evidence-based policy advocacy to inform policy implementation, upscaling, and graduating of best practices for women, youth, children, and persons with disabilities, economic empowerment in Kenya, and focusing on cross-border trade. And our main areas for collaboration, this tripartite collaboration is research, policy advocacy and piloting, and monitoring and evaluation. I don't want to go to the specific, but as I conclude, these are some of the things that are ongoing in our collaboration with the Ministry of East African Community and the CCGD. We are doing a review and analysis of literature on regional trade frameworks, such as the establishment of East African Community, protocol on establishment of common market, and others. So this is ongoing. We are also developing a position paper on gender responsive budgeting. We shall be comparing Kenya and the partner states in the East African Community, how they are faring in, and make recommendations on the minimum requirements. They call it in Kenya, they call the MOD, irreducible minimums. So you have to create some reducible minimums for gender budgeting. And then we have also been reviewing the national budget and the county budget policy. The one that we've done quickly was the Busia, because of our involvement with CCGD on cross-border trade. So we have looked at it, especially on the issues of childcare, and made our recommendations on the Busia budget. So with those few remarks, I want to thank again the conveners and all the participants who are here, and look forward to a fruitful engagement. Thank you so much.
Once again, very important information on what is the partnership.
the Ministry of EAC and CCGD. They have been doing it for a long time, but now this is a formal agreement which has been signed by the Ministry, CCGD, and the Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi. That means that in terms of the outcomes, it will be possible now for Kenya to share with other regional partner states, and specifically the EAC, maybe some good practice which can be used to enhance and perhaps be able to achieve what Jim Ross had mentioned. And I know even one of his good soldiers, Morris, knows that we've been working on the EAC African Union Border Program, and some of there are several issues that we can benefit from the universities across the region, maybe even a partnership with the various universities within the respective partner states, so that we can share knowledge. And if you look at the Inter-University Council of East Africa, it could, where it so happens that the University of Nairobi is a member, so is Kenyatta University and the other partner states. We could be able to use that window to promote one of those gaps where we have, especially what has been mentioned by Generals on moving our women to run full-fledged businesses, like what is happening in other parts of the world. We must grow, and we are focusing on Africa. And if we are able to implement what she has said, the negotiation that has been done, maybe we need to see what do we do, how do we go about it. Maybe the university could be able to help us. The tools that were also mentioned by the EAC, how can we be able to use them to cross the gaps? Because the bottom line is, can we be able to bring women where they're supposed to be? And those who perhaps may have been following up the EAC and women, you remember in 2011, in August, it was 5th and 6th August, 2011, we had an inaugural Women in Business Conference in Kigali, Rwanda, and very key recommendations were made. And I'm yet to know exactly how far we are. Maybe we can explore that as EAC. How far did we go with respect to the recommendations, and what followed up, I think, later in Uganda, and the last meeting was in Nairobi. I don't know whether we can be able to see, can we bring back that trade forum where women were sharing, but not only selling their products, they were also able to share experiences for the best practice for each country. And that exchange was a good forum for our women to outreach and knowledge sharing. So I maybe George will confirm whether the PS is still there, whether the office is set for the presentation, as maybe she prepares, invite the next speakers, even organize experts. We have, I think, Chikana from the Civil Society Engagement Consultants, African Development Bank. We have Renette Miriti, I think, from FEB. I had mentioned. We have Sarah Duta from Gender Specialist from International Center for Research on Women. I mentioned Peter Jacqueline, economist, Minister of ICT, and we'll keep on recognizing others as they continue to join us online. As we wait for that to confirm the readiness for the PS to share his speech, that we can proceed on with our workshop. I want to request our next speaker we have a youth to speak, and they're in the house already with us. Kepsa is already in the house with us. Mr. Mikey at the State Department for EAC. And if you allow me, as I confirm whether the system is set from Judge. So we give
So it's logging. Okay, thank you. So yeah, as he set up the system, it was actually in another meeting. Yes. So yes, told the PS State Department for East African Community, Dr. Periti Desai, is as logged in, and I must say that I have had the privilege of working with him, and he is a government officer who has passion for promoting cross-border trade. It's him because he personally participates directly. There are things when it comes to issues of regional and trade, and especially women. I think he has attended almost any event at the border, and he is very, very good in terms of partnerships. Excellent in partnership because he happens to be heading the secretariat that is dealing with Vision 2030. So he has a global picture with respect to trade promotion, not only in the country, but regionally, and I know that he's also learning many other programs, and therefore we have the benefit. He's also an expert in IT, in ICT. He's doing so many things. It's difficult to describe him. I know he has received several honorary degrees from universities which have had an opportunity to interact with him or with him at different points. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me as we welcome Dr. Kemiti Desai, Principal Secretary, State Department for East African Community, to share the keynote address and officially open this meeting. Thank you. Yes.
A very good morning to all, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I'm encouraged to be part of this opening ceremony this morning with a view of promoting greater dialogue and engagement by all stakeholders, as is typical within the context of this subject of women empowerment and the support that is required. A structured establishment with respect to all the key stakeholders is necessary for us to make collective decisions and promote collective leadership on this subject. I do feel humbled to take this opportunity to thank you all, and in particular to be part of this important initiative. I would also like to thank the national government and the county government for accepting to be part of this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of effort has been put with respect to the ongoing movement on this subject of economic empowerment for women, specifically around the cross-border capacities. And indeed, this couldn't have been achieved without the great work of Mr. Masheti Asanjila, who is the CEO of the Collaborative Center for Gender and Development, and Professor Wanjiku Kabira, the Director for Women Economic Empowerment, the WE Hub, University of Nairobi. Now, indeed, we count on their leadership and their engagement and the private-public partnership that we have within this context. And indeed, it is a delight for me to know, and it is important for all of us to appreciate that this indeed is one of the first initiatives after having signed the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between the Ministry of EAC and Regional Development and the Center for Collaborative and Gender Development. So indeed, we look forward to dialogue today and the ability for all stakeholders to engage with a view of ensuring that we're able to come up with creative solutions and innovations, but above all, defined commitments by all stakeholders as to how we would like to collectively engage and address this very important challenge. And therefore, I thank you all once again for attending this event and meeting, and wish you much success in putting your views, your insights, your thoughts and ideas across, which are very important and need to be understood and appreciated. And therefore, equally, I also call for a great deal of patience and understanding from all stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, the State Department for the East African Community, Ministry of East African Community and Regional Development, in partnership with our development partners, have embarked on a transformation agenda of engaging cross-border women traders in border counties to build their capacity to benefit from the gains of the EAC integration process. Towards this end, we have continued to train and capacity build women traders on the EAC trade rules, regulations, and procedures. The training is informed by reports of regional women in business conferences that took place in Kigali, Rwanda in 2011 and in Nairobi in 2015. During the two conferences, women traders complained that they struggle to find information regarding the goods and services allowed for trade in each partner state, the standards, the authorization of certificates required, the taxes, tariff applicable in each country. The import and export laws of each country, the trade processes and control are also a challenge with respect to being understood clearly. The rules of origin and the customs procedure, among other details that are important for successful trade within the region. The women indicated that they did not know where to seek help or lodge a complaint regarding cross-border trade inconsistencies. In light of the above and the need to address the non-tariff barriers faced by the women cross-border traders, the Republic of Kenya, in partnership with ILO, initiated the process of developing a simplified guide to EAC trade rules, regulations, and procedures for cross-border traders and other service providers to assist the women traders get all the relevant cross-border trade information. Ladies and gentlemen, studies have shown that there are about 16 million traders in the EAC region, of which 70% are women, dealing with primary, stable, and agricultural commodities. The capacity development program for women cross-border traders is also motivated by the Big Four agenda, which seeks to accelerate economic progress of our country through manufacturing, universal healthcare, food security, affordable housing. Cross-border traders, majority were women, are significant players in feeding this country. Majorly, they trade in cereals and other foodstuffs, which are essential in stabilizing food supply in Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, at the regional level, the State Department seeks to incorporate the national agenda in the EAC integration process through citizen-centered activities that have economic value. We seek to consolidate the gains of the integration process and share the story with all Kenyans through each such forums. It is imperative that women are continuously trained and informed of contemporary trends in international and regional trade to enable them to re-engineer their processes. As Kenya modernizes its borders and adopts one-stop border post concepts, it's the responsibility of our ministry to bring all stakeholders on board. I wish to note, however, that despite the efforts put in towards women economic empowerment, there still exists a number of challenges that need urgent attention. It should not be lost on us that a lot of work done by women, for example, care work, is either not paid at all or underpaid. If women must meaningfully participate and benefit from any economic endeavors, then the skills must be honed and targeted for wealth creation and their well-being and that of the nation. Indeed, I want to urge you to look at the women not just as passive recipients of women's support, but as active and able partners in this human economic endeavor. I want to believe that from the discussions emanating from the study release, we should be able to engage more and address those obvious gaps that hinder the realization of women's full potential. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, This thought-provoking exercise today to bring the necessary dialogue between stakeholders, I'm hoping that yields several supporting mechanisms. Indeed, on one hand, we see that the EAC is expanding by way of the possibility of the inclusion of Congo, which now, ladies and gentlemen, we need to consider as a much larger ecosystem, just to magnify and to help appreciate the size of this ecosystem. You're looking at approximately 275 million people with Congo joining us, in addition to the other partner states. This will become one of the the largest region in terms of population, the fourth largest region after China, India, the United States, etc., and so on. It'll also be the seventh largest landmass, with 5.5 million square kilometers, and rich potential, in terms of natural resources, the richness of the people, and the diversity of the people. So indeed, ladies and gentlemen, on one hand, the market potential has tremendous potential by the very fact that within the context of your dialogue today and into the week and your onward work, there needs to be a realization that we need to ensure that we create the necessary structures and frameworks and mechanisms for this market in a systematic way, which means that we need to focus on issues of policies, legislations, regulations, standards, the laws, but at the same time, promote the infrastructure like trading hubs and manufacturing capacities, build greater coordination capability, find ways in which we're able to build more talent and capacity amongst the key stakeholders, and promote innovation. And there's plenty of innovation. I was recently at Holili, and the Women's Association trader groups have developed a cluster mechanism which is able to share a lorry on a return journey when it's empty. And so, thereby reducing the cost of transportation, but using the existing networks and structures of transportation for their benefit in terms of entrepreneurship. And so we see countless number of innovations and capacities. How to raise and scale them within a systematic ecosystem becomes our collective responsibility. And each one of us have to be involved. There's the other aspect too. I've recently come back from Arusha last week, where we successfully brought a consensus to the admission into the African Continental Free Trade Area. Consensus of approximately 1,700 tariff lines was achieved by all member states. This means that your access to efficiency of trade and economic affairs within the continent has increased to 900 million people, because prior to building that consensus, there were some 24 member countries within East Africa, 26 member countries within East Africa who had already fulfilled all the modalities within the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, of course, there are more than 35, which means that, this too is a growing opportunity. So I can't help but notice on one hand the powerful potential that exists. And then on the other hand, the energy of women and the proficient capability to trade, to create relations, to find ways in which they take the risk, to build the courage for business acumen. And so all those in this room today, all those around these tables need to realize the gravity of opportunity here. And as we do this, we also need to lift the concept of trade. Trade is value addition. Trade is value addition. it's not a subsidiary to entrepreneurship. It's central. It's part of value addition. And so that means that we need to think big about this. We need to think about how do we promote that trading system? How do we make all these trading points within East Africa similar to Dubai? Like, how do we make a Dubai of Namanga? How do we make a Dubai of Lunga Lunga, Taita, Taveta, etc., and so on? The point I'm trying to make is that trading systems promote amplification. They're absolutely central to the integration process because they promote the value proposition of relationships between countries. But they're also extremely important to promote the overall function of our people and to ensure that we're able to touch the very arteries and nerves and be able to reach all stakeholders. Mr. Mwangi, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I think the video seems to be cut off. Very good. So then, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to close by thanking you once again. But before I close, I just wanted to hear some thoughts. So if we could just send the microphone round the table, because this is really a meeting. How I would have wished to be with you, because I know that this meeting is the apex success of integration, because of all the things that I believe in and what I've said. But I would also like to hear from yourself. Can we make these decisions? Can we enhance our support? And do we see the opportunity here of transformative success, thereby addressing issues of humanity, but at the same time, transitioning this into a full-blown opportunity of great success for our continent? Over to you, Mr. Mwangi.
Dr. Desai, I think very loudly and affirmatively, we are fully in support, and we think the integration is working. And it's one of those areas, like in this room, where we are dealing with the people who are the prime movers on the borders of this trade. And as several speakers have pointed out, there's been a lot of work in terms of improving the policy framework, but also, as you said, in terms of trade facilitation, the whole infrastructure of trade. You also touched on dialogue. So the fact that within this room we have different kinds of stakeholders represented, focusing on the issue of women economic empowerment and all, including the issue of trade, shows that as we talk about trade, as we talk about empowering particularly people who suffer relative marginalization in different ways in trade and building up the economy of East Africa and of Africa, we are on the right track. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person ready to share their thoughts. It's open, responding to the PS talk. Yes, your name and organization as you respond.
Thank you so much. My name is Sally from Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and thank you so much, Dr. Desai. Always a pleasure to hear you speak, your conversance with the issues that we are dealing with. Representing the Women in Manufacturing program for the association specifically, we really hear you on the fact that trading is value addition. For the Women in Manufacturing program, when we started going into the counties last year, what we saw was what you're actually talking about, a hunger for women to trade outside of their own borders, from the counties to other counties, and also to know how to go into the region. But then there's a lack of knowledge, and the knowledge that exists, they find it very technical or inaccessible. So those are some of the gaps that we need to start talking about, empowering these women with even sharpening their business acumen to be able to spread, to get out of their counties to be able to really, them getting into manufacturing as a non-traditional sector for women is already quite laudable for them. And so that is one thing that I know we've started to work with county government. Your ministry and CS Betty's ministry is also quite involved in this. So we really need the government's intervention as well, especially with the coming of the AFCFTA, to know how we can get women in non-traditional sectors such as manufacturing to go beyond the counties, to go beyond Kenya, and to start taking advantage of some of these opening opportunities in the region. So thank you very much, and we do look forward to your support. We will be engaging you more on this. Thank you, Dr. Desai.
Thank you, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Next speaker is somebody behind you. Name and organization, please.
Yes, thank you. And thanks to the PS for wonderful remarks and the clear learning points that we've got. And from the EAC Secretariat, really it's just to appreciate the Republic of Kenya for steering us forward this year as chair. But we also need your support, especially in this area we are going to, the African Continental Free Trade Area. We know now it opens up much more space, but also comes with even more challenges. We are 15 years into implementing the Common Market Protocol, the Customs Union and Customs Union Protocol, and I think 15 years, more than 15 years into implementing the Customs Union Protocol. But as you know, we still have challenges. So even as we now open up to the more than 900 million people across the trading zones, we need your support as chair so that we take stock of especially what we are doing, the challenges we are facing in this area, especially women and cross-border trade. On a personal level, I'm a man in business, but dealing with some of the things that women commonly deal with. And I know from a lived experience the challenge of cross-border trade. Sometimes when you are in this room, you will hear of so much, but if you go to the border, you will see a different scenario. And I think that's what we've got out of the dialogues that we've had many times with the women cross-border traders. So really, it's to ask for your support, especially in mobilizing the rest of the partner states to make whatever we agree on as policy actualized, so that at the end of the day, that very person who wants to trade can make an attribution of the impact of the regional policies that we are making. Thank you.
Yes, your name and organization.
Yes, sir. My name is Mohammed. I work at Ministry of Defense. As a civilian, I'm the gender focal person in the ministry. And I appreciate your remarks. I thank you very much for the learning points that have come out in that brief. Sorry, sir, for that. I was saying that in my role as an officer at the Ministry of Defense, the issue of women's economic empowerment has become very pertinent. And I've picked out particularly the area you mentioned, that women need to be trained and informed on modern business trends so that they are able to grow. And one thing that is not known widely is that in the military, that is where I work, I mean as a civilian, the spouses and the widows form a special segment. And currently we are trying to see how we can bring them into this business environment. And so having come to this meeting, to me, it's a game changer. I want to learn and go and implement the thinking and the resolutions that come out of such forum. And I thank you for your leadership in this area, for your presence, for your commitment, sir. I thank you, and I'm just hoping that this is the beginning of bigger things to come. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Much for the opportunity. I'm Ann Seda from Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. I'd like to thank you so much for the wonderful speech and remarks. We as the ministry will really be mainly focused on trade facilitation and access to information, because most of women are in the chain of production. But we know we are so endowed in terms of mineral resources, the gemstone. So the major problem with the women have is where to sell their products. So we look forward to you facilitating the trade with the other countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think the next person on the ground is Mr. Mainge Patrick from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance.
Thank you very much, Mwangi. Thank you very much, Bwana PS, for those great comments. We appreciate you, and especially from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, bringing together all the business associations in Kenya. We thank you for including women in our business and policy. Mainly, especially we as KEPSA, we work a lot with women in business. My colleague here from the manufacturing sector, we are women in manufacturing. There's a whole body of SMEs that we work with, and especially focusing on the woman whose business. And mainly, which I want to mention here, is agribusiness. There's a lot that we can do in agriculture, being the key sector of our economy. And we are looking not just to have the woman as the mama mboga, where we buy the last product, but as a woman, as the owner of the business, the person who runs the business, the person who makes the key decisions to run these agribusinesses. So thank you very much, Bwana PS, and we continue to work with you. Thank you for your continued support. We appreciate you. Asante.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mainge.
Thank you so much, Bwana PS. My name is Veridiana Wasike. I'm in charge of partnership and resource mobilization at the National Youth Council. Now, the conversation has been going on about women, and I'll speak directly to young women and the youth. And I think, as well as my colleague from CAMSAID, as they have traversed the country, the National Youth Council has also traversed the country, and we have seen a lot of young women despair because, one, a lack of capacity building, especially within the trading space. A lot of them are not quite exposed, and additionally, as we have gone around, and especially with the AFCFTA, we believe there's a lot of opportunity for especially the young people and young women in particular in trade. But this is not trickling down to them. And our biggest issue as well is the support of direct legislation for youth. And this are, as I say youth, I bring the context of young women at the same time. So even as we discuss in women empowerment here today, I think there is a clear focus that there has to be a target of young women, and that now comes as well into the introduction of how we are championing for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you so much. Yes. My name is Generos Minani, the Principal Gender and Community Development at the East African Community Secretariat. Relying on what you said so far, you mentioned there's so many tools we developed at EAC, and my contribution here, as you challenged us, is that EAC is targeting or is strategizing on teamwork or partnership. We know that running as one country, one can reach very far, but if we go as a block, as an EAC, we can really achieve successfully what we are supposed to achieve. The center in front of us is said policy advocate. The aim is to advocate for gender equality and non-discrimination. To remind our participants here today, we are soon celebrating International Women's Day. The UN Women is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow, with a campaigning theme, break the bias. Break the bias, it has a lot of things inside. Our women, we are talking about empowering women. Our women need a mentorship from all sides, we can say. Honorable PS, when you negotiate and you are still negotiating for trading in our African continental free trade area, and we thank you so much for the achievement so far to be allowed to be accepted as successfully achieving a minimum agreements for being trading block A. So you were together as PSCs and as ministers in trade. We need togetherness within these people who are here, civil society, private sector, and anyone who is really advocating for empowerment of women. From this meeting or from Kenya as a country, we can learn or train other countries, and we'll run together. Bwana PS, there is a way we can build on your experience, not as individual experience as a country in Kenya, to gather all other countries and get tangible or good information to build on. Our women today, or the free trade, the AFC FTA, without information technology knowledge, I think my daughter or my colleague there talked about youth. We need to build the capacity seriously of youth in this community and the young women as well. In this regard, we have to encourage ICT knowledge for everyone. E-commerce is the one which is going to make this community being successful in this continental trade. Otherwise, if we rely on our mama mboga as traders, we will not reach far. And again, those mama mbogas, they are needed to be supported. As I said earlier, mentorship is very important. Peer-to-peer learning is very important. ICT must be at the front as a tool to make our young women, our youth successful, even mentor our mothers who were older in trading. Dear peers, as you gather in your group, your team, as PSCs, you can also look at all these areas and make a good recommendation or directive so that we can really take the lead in mentoring these women who are supposed to be empowered, not only in trade, but in all other
angle of life. I thank you so much. Yes. I thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, and thank you all for listening.
And thank you, PS, for the brief that you've given us. I just want to say something and echo what Jean Ross has said, that there are all these opportunities that are available for women entrepreneurs, but we need to start from the core root, which is thinking about or transitioning women informal entrepreneurs to formal entrepreneurs so that they can access this opportunity. Like she has said, the case of the African Continental Free we Boga, like she has said, she cannot access. So I think we need to start by that, the formalization of informal entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Very important information that you've shared, your insights, your thoughts and ideas. And this is the richness of bringing this kind of dialogue together. There's several things that I pick up already, but all the comments were very important. But the first is, indeed, we need to be mindful of the current situation for women, especially those that are trading without any support, and all the difficulties that they face, in terms of, the acceptance of society, the acceptance of administrations on both sides of the country. These are real problems, that they are challenged with. And so what I'm proposing is, and together with another key point that you mentioned, mentorship and guidance and access to opportunity. And I really think that the theme of your dialogue really has to be about economic empowerment, thereby addressing aspects of self-reliance, resilience, and inclusive development. I know and I'm aware that many leaders like yourselves are doing several things on different parallel structures, but this particular platform really has to go ahead and find solutions for dedicated ecosystems for women. We need to be mindful that many of them are actually just living on a hand-to-mouth basis, so they can't really have time to create ecosystems. So the ingenuity of an idea by way of using technology is important and relevant. And I'm hoping that, either the Ministry of ICT or in collaboration with the private sector can take this up to create a mentorship platform. And indeed, this is doable because there's so much information required. Like, while policymakers have developed the simplified tariff regime, we're still getting many challenges with respect to implementing it. And this is just one policy initiative, but then there's several others. And that's what we need to ensure that we create a dedicated framework which enables people to understand even policy interventions, amongst many other opportunities. The other aspect that I think we could make a decision immediately on is the issue, and in particular on this mentorship issue. I'm seeking the support of CAM and KEPSA here to promote that leadership across, the 250 associations that they're in charge of. But most importantly, the networks that they have, both multinationals, intra and extra. It's time we realize that what we're doing is we're not requesting for something altruistically. What we're requesting for is a value proposition. Because if I'm making biscuits in Thika, for example, and I'm a member of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, I know that the biscuits are being sold to Congo. So then, why not amplify capacities at trade points so that women don't have to struggle, without a store, without knowledge of how to access the customs procedures, without being able to use lorries. There's so many unnecessary hardships. So what I'm basically saying is that the value proposition to the biscuit manufacturer is that we will amplify your trade into the 900 million people. But what you have to do is have some sort of semblance of investment with respect to the trade hub. And indeed, the counties have provided land. Namanga has provided 200 acres, Olilia another 50, and so on. And there are market systems already in place. So one area that could be really transformative, ladies and gentlemen, is that we see to it that we see collectively as leaders who understand this movement, who are champions of women traders and women empowerment, really make it a point to help stakeholders, large-scale private sector organizations and medium-sized, who are already using these routes across borders to understand, that implication and value proposition of how we would be able to amplify their markets through an investment in structure. So that's an immediate return of investment, and I'm hoping that our able leadership from representatives of CAM, KEPSA, and various other trade associations can take this up. The second issue here is that with respect to transitions, it is important to realize that we need to find ways in which we promote the organization. I know this is complex, but we would like to hear their voice collectively and across borders. So, the Women's Trade Association, when I was in Holili, it was normal for the Women's Trade Association for URT and the Women's Traders Association for Kenya to speak jointly. And so I think that we need to encourage that. And we need to encourage that with a link to the EAC, with a view of ensuring that we eventually achieve a much bigger dream, the policy development of cross-border women and SMEs in East Africa, which doesn't exist within the EAC. So I think that, let us really aim for the highest level of transition and transformation. Let us create that economic policy for women traders and SMEs, and let us see how it's taken up seriously within the East African context. Because otherwise, if we don't think of women in manufacturing, women in trade, women supported by ecosystems, women encouraged by county administrations, women supported by value chains on an end-to-end ecosystem, then, whatever we do will be fairly small, and not impactful. We want to be felt by all. And we see the obvious return of energy and with a view of ensuring that we are very successful. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are just some opening thoughts, but indeed we want maximum creativity of this event. So I want to assure you that indeed not only are we in solidarity to the cause, but also as a ministry, we lead and champion this effort within government. And we also recognize and appreciate that you also, as individuals, champion this initiative in your respective networks and structures and associations and so on. And I know and I believe that that gives me all the confidence that indeed we will see women transition, for example, into transport sectors, agricultural value addition, textiles, and all the big things that we can imagine. So the pathway is quite clear. We do need very dedicated discussions. Everything is open for transformation. We're also discussing the Common Market Protocol at this stage. We're discussing ECMA. We're reviewing everything. We're open. We want to be all integrated, not fragmented. And we want to ensure that we create that fabric for transformation. With that, I'd like to thank you and I wish you a very good day. And I look forward to the report.
You've had a PS, and he has officially opened this conference and wished us all the best. So now, looking at the program, unless somebody has something else to share the PS with, or he has gone. Okay, fine. So looking at the program, I think we had stopped at, but I think we can take a break. Okay, yeah. So I'm just thinking that we could have 2 more remarks that are remaining. So now I want to invite KEPSA. Patrick Maingi. Please, Patrick, I can see you are around. Welcome.
come and share with us your thoughts.
Okay, sorry that we have to speak after the PS, and I will not keep you longer. I can see tired faces around the room, but we are the business people. We talk money more than time. Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Maingi, and I lead PPT. PPT is public-private dialogue, the dialogue between the public sector and the private sector. We work with all the other business associations. I see CAM is on the house, and many others, Chamber of Commerce, bankers associations, agriculture sector networks, so that we can change policy around the ease of doing business in Kenya. And that is my point of discussion on this forum, that as we talk about women empowerment, we can only be empowered first by the education we give, but then financially and economically. And that's where we come in as business associations. KEPSA brings together all these associations to become the big voice when we do our meetings with the likes of CCGD and YASCOF and the like, and the government. So I thank Mwengi. I'm told you left. But Mwengi and your team, Ministry of EAC and Trade and Industrialization, when we are doing our business, you've been very good to us. And we want to continue influencing policy. We advocate for policy to ensure we have 2-3 key things, and I'll stop at that point. The ease of doing business, so that we can do business easily. Let the women in this country do business better, easy, without a lot of things. Hatutaki kuona mamboga kimbizana na kanjo. I hope everybody can hear Swahili here. We don't want to see the women in our markets chasing together with the business, with the city council askaris, or which askarity is that? Ease of doing business. Number 2 is the global competitiveness. Then we can invest well. And that index is measured by the World Economic Forum. The first index of ease of doing business is by the World Bank. And then there's that one, which is the Corruption Perception Index. As we reduce our corruption, we want to ensure that things are doing well. I work as a PPD manager, and I engage through the various platforms, from county governments to the national government, to state agencies, to the regulators and everybody, so that as we regulate business, we are making sure that there's good and conducive environment for women. As we keep talking, I expect to hear what we can do together to influence policy at the national and county level, so that our women can trade and do better business, so that they are financially and economically empowered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's together.
Thank you very much, the moderator. And after listening to Dr. Desai, I actually thought this is a trap. You can't have me speak after what the PS has said, because I don't think there's anything else that I can say. So I'm Mr. Machete, I'm very upset about this. Next time, please don't make me speak after the PS, because then what I say is nothing close to what he has shared. So my name is Lynette, and I'm going to speak to you very briefly about the work we do at the bank on promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. Now, with me in the meeting is my colleague Chikane, who we actually come from the same department, but she handles our work in the region on civil society engagement. So at some point, I will actually ask Chikane just to come in and talk a little bit about our engagement with civil society. So I just want to thank you, the organizers, the Collaborative Center for Gender and Development, the East African community. Please don't move yet. I will tell you when to move the slides. I want to just thank you for convening this meeting. As I've been listening since morning, and I actually thought that this is so important for me, and I hope that there will be a report after this, because it gives a lot of background to the work we do on mainstreaming gender, especially around regional integration and trade projects in the region. So it's very, very important for us, and I'm glad that we're in this meeting. I actually was also very happy to see the representatives from the East African community. And I was thinking that I might actually just send a message to Madame Jane Rose and say, please, I would like to come and dialogue with you. Because again, as you will see later, our approach is gender mainstreaming, and it would really be a good idea to have collaboration with the gender department at the East African community. So I'm going to call Chikane later, but now I want to just start a little bit about the bank and how we work on gender. So if we can move to the first slide, please, or second slide. The second one, next. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this, but basically what I'm trying to say is that we've been on this journey for a very long time. And we've had a mixed bag of results. So the bank started working on gender where, as soon as after Beijing in 1995, the bank established a Women and Development Unit. And I think just like any other institution, there has been evolving from a focus on women and development, then to a focus on gender and development. And we've had results here and results there. Now, around 2012, there was an evaluation of our gender work, and as well as other development partners. And a very interesting report came out that talked about gender mainstreaming being a road to results or a road to nowhere. And it really got us thinking, are we really headed towards results, or is it really a road to nowhere? And 4 things came out of this of this evaluation report. That number 1, we needed stronger leadership that supports gender mainstreaming. And it was found that in the absence of such leadership, there was what was called policy evaporation. If you can give me a minute just to shut off the noise around me. Okay. So there was policy evaporation. So we start off with very good policies. And I thought maybe I should mention this because I've had such good policies mentioned, such good initiatives, and we should guard against policy evaporation. Now, the second challenge was the absence of accountability mechanisms and incentive systems to carry on all these policies and actions to fruition. Third, we all know about the financial and human resources, that capacities and finance was not enough to actually do effective work on gender equality. So this has been going on forever, and we still know that it's an issue today. And then finally, and with institutions like ours or East African community or even government departments, a lot of us come up with guidelines and procedures and action plans. And we found that many procedures and practices are usually introduced, and then they are pursued for a short time, and they gradually decline, use, and die. So these are what the challenges. And I want us to think about this, because then thinking about this could help us in terms of how we take forward what we're discussing today and the actions agreed upon. So we have evolved, and just last year, then our board of directors approved a new gender strategy. And part of the evolvement we've had is actually making gender results part of the corporate commitments. So this is very important, making sure that the results around gender are not just the responsibility of a gender department, but a corporate commitment. Now, if we could go to the next slide, where I talk a little bit about, I think, what has been mentioned by many. Now, back one. Now, our gender strategy, back again, is informed by a few facts. Yes, there. Now, we all know that across all sectors, and this was mentioned by Masheti when he opened, women and girls face several constraints. And these constraints refrain their active participation and benefit from the initiatives. So whether you look at agriculture, the issues that have been mentioned around cross-border trade, the issues that have been mentioned about this, the knowledge of simplified trade regimes, across all sectors, there are specific constraints. Now, on the other hand, we all know and agree that promoting gender equality and women's empowerment is instrumental in fostering inclusive growth. Of course, one of the bank's objectives in our strategy has been promoting inclusive growth. That will not happen unless gender equality is taken into account. Now, third, if we look at Africa as a continent, we know that if we don't really focus on accelerating empowerment of women and girls, and I like that earlier Masheti actually said, why are we talking women and girls and not necessarily gender equality? If we do not accelerate this, then Africa's journey or East Africa's journey towards SDGs, towards our socio-economic fulfillment will actually be slowed down. And the last bit is that we know that in countries where there's conflict, gender imbalances are even deeper. Now, in the community, in the East African community, we do have countries emerging or countries where we've had pockets of conflict. We know that it's even harder in these areas. So that trade in Busia and Malaba and trade in Namanga will not be the same as trade at the northern part of Kenya with South Sudan, and it will not be the same in DRC because it will be much more difficult in areas where there's conflict. But we also know that when we have situations such as the COVID pandemic, women will be disproportionately affected by COVID, by climate change. So with that in mind, then we as the bank then developed our bank strategy. And so we came up with 3 areas, and if we can move to the next slide, 3 areas that we'll work on, and I'll talk around them just now. So this strategy is really to transform Africa's key sectors into foundations of accessible opportunities where women, girls, men and boys can enjoy equal access, control of productive resources, and benefit from infrastructure and services. Now, you know that the bank has a huge focus on infrastructure. I think maybe one of the things we are known for, even though we work in other areas, is infrastructure. And we do see infrastructure as an enabler of gender equality. And I'll look at how this works in the next slide. Now, I just want to talk about a little bit then of how are we addressing gender equality and women's empowerment. If we can move to the next slide, please. Back one. Okay, then I think I mixed up my slides. So the bank, I would say we have 4 or 5 approaches, and I think the slide will come up later. Maybe I've mixed them up on the one that's printed on my desk. So the first approach, our biggest approach, is really gender mainstreaming. I know this has, people have talked about mainstreaming, not heading anywhere, but given the way the bank works, we find this the most effective way. And the reason for mainstreaming is because we can leverage the large projects, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's agriculture, we can leverage those projects and make sure that gender results are included in those projects. Because as a bank, a lot of our clients, being regional member countries, may not necessarily come to the bank and borrow or request loans for gender equality. So our approach is, if they're going to borrow for a road project, then we are going to make sure there's gender results in that road project. If they're going to borrow for energy or agriculture or regional integration, then we incorporate gender results into those projects. That's why our main approach is gender mainstreaming. So we look at mainstreaming mainly in the projects, as well as in country dialogue, when we have dialogue with the member countries, and by regional member countries, I mean all the African countries. I also mean the regional economic communities like the East African community, as well as our internal policies. Now, we do have an internal tool that we use, which we call the gender marker system. I won't go into the detail of this, but what this tool enables us to do is ensure that we have results on gender right into the design of the project and articulated all the way to the project log frames so that these results are tracked. So I mean, if there was time, I could speak a little bit about how we do this. But this is actually so that we hold ourselves accountable that the projects are indeed transformational. And we focus on a lot of things in the mainstreaming. For instance, in transport, it's looking at how transport corridors or roads are promoting women's access to markets, physical markets, or whether it's one border stops that promote regional trade. Whether it's getting women as contractors on projects, whether it's employment. In water, for instance, we look at projects reducing the burden of reproductive roles for women so that they're not spending 4 hours drawing water and have access to household water, or energy for food processing and making work easier. Agricultural value chains, and I had the PS talk about value addition. We look at women's access to land, access to finance, access to productive resources in agriculture. So across all the sectors, we make sure that we have gender results in there. And with our marker system, we do know that there are certain projects where it's harder, but there are other projects where it's easier. And for those where there's more potential, then much more is required. So that's one way in which we address women's empowerment. The other area, and I heard this mentioned earlier, it's around evidence building and knowledge. So for this, we work on gender profiles. I was actually thinking it would be such a good idea if we had a profile on gender for East African, for the countries, a regional profile that shows us the status of gender equality in the East African community. So these are really evidence documents that show us where we are and where we need to be going. And I must say right now we are working on profiles for Uganda. We will be starting Uganda. Rwanda, we have started work, and Burundi as well. We have started some work. For Kenya, there's already a profile being developed by UN Women and the EU. So we don't really want to do what is already being done. And we are in the process of finalizing a gender profile for Tanzania. So these are important in terms of giving evidence. Then at the aggregate level, we have an African Gender Index that now compares progress of Africa as a region and ranking of countries in terms of where they are. Then we have numerous other gender studies and tools and guidelines. So that's our work around knowledge. Then we've got flagship initiatives. And I've put AFAWA in red because I think a lot of you have heard about it. I had Masheti mention the call for proposals earlier. This is the affirmative finance action for women in Africa. We do recognize that whilst our main approach is gender mainstreaming, we also need to have targeted initiatives that really catalyze action. Now, the AFAWA initiative is supposed to bridge the financing gap for women. And how we work in AFAWA is through 3 areas. Number one, it's access to finance, where the bank has extended a guarantee to the African Guarantee Fund that in turn guarantees commercial banks so that they make loans accessible to women. So the Africa Guarantee Fund is signing MOUs with several banks across the region, and so that women can actually go to the bank and borrow against this guarantee, which actually reduces their risk. And we hope that it can also then give them a good risk assessment when they go to the banks. So access to finance. Within AFAWA, we also look at creating an enabling environment. This is looking at any policies or laws or that could challenge women from accessing to finance, and work with the regional member countries to address this. We look at what the gaps are. And then finally, building capacity of both women entrepreneurs and financial institutions, entrepreneurs, to make them business ready, to help them grow businesses. And that's against it's against this that a call for proposal was that was mentioned earlier was made. And I believe the call either has come to a close or is coming to a close in a few days. And that particular call was looking at financing institutions that can actually help aggregate women entrepreneurs and build their capacity for growth. So that's a FAWA. Then we do have another initiative called Fashionomics. It's less about fashion, but more about promoting women's economic empowerment through creative industries. And we do know that across all regions, there's a lot of women in this area of work. And for this, there's actually an online marketing platform where traders or entrepreneurs can sign up and sell on this platform. I should have also mentioned the 50 Million Women Speak, which has come to a close, which actually one of the implementing partners was the East African Community, together with COMESA and ECOWAS, that was looking at creating an online platform for women to get information, for women to trade, for women to get information on a cross of entrepreneurship issues, including access to finance. Then, of course, the other things we do, I've put Gen 1 there. It's an internal term we use for projects whose sole objective is to advance gender equality. So whenever possible inside the bank where we have trust funds, we try and generate projects whose sole objective is to advance gender equality and women's empowerment. The other way we work is through policy dialogue with governments, with stakeholders like yourselves, with regional economic bodies to get policy commitments to advance gender equality. And finally, capacity building, both internally and externally. Now, if we can move to the next one now, just to talk about the 3 key areas of our strategy. Some of them I've already mentioned. Now, given that background, our strategy, we chose to focus on 3 areas because, again, we've got to be selective. Now, the first pillar is empowering women through access to finance and markets. And I've talked about the AFAWA program there. But it's not just through AFAWA, it's also where we have agriculture projects or any other projects where there's room to enhance access to markets. Then we have this as a key area of work. So empowering women through access to finance and markets. The next pillar is accelerating job creation for women through skills enhancement. And we have several internal projects, the Technology for Agriculture project, the Coding for Employment project, the Youth Empowerment projects in the bank, where we ensure that the skills of young women are also being built so that they can get employable skills. But beyond the standalone projects, also, if we look at our infrastructure projects, we will design them such that some of them include internship programs for young women. We look at where there's gaps. We have maybe training. So we look for ways in which, through our projects, we are continuously creating skills that create employment possibilities. And then finally, given that we have a lot of focus on infrastructure, we see this as an enabler, and therefore we have this pillar around increasing women's access to social services through infrastructure. So it's making sure that we leverage our infrastructure projects to unlock opportunities for women, whether it's access to markets, access to water, all the issues that I had mentioned earlier. I think I want to stop there. I had a few more slides, I guess, that I had hidden. But I'll stop there so that in case there's any room for questions. But before that, my colleague Chikane, who works on civil society engagement, is online. And I would like her also to say a word or two on how we work on civil society engagement. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Lynette, for giving me time to speak. Very quickly, I'll just go ahead and say what the bank is doing with regards to civil society engagement in the bank. As we know that the bank has, with regards to civil society engagement, we've come a long way. From 1990, we've moved to developing frameworks for enhanced civil society engagement. Framework for developing, we've moved from 1990 to developing framework for enhanced engagement with civil society organizations. We've also moved from that to having a division of our own, which tackles civil society engagement and provides advisory services to the bank on civil society engagement, and have moved this year to developing the civil society engagement strategy. So for us at the bank, civil society organizations are like, we can liken it to the baobab tree, which is quite useful. The leaves are useful, the roots are useful, the juice is useful. So we see civil society engagement as very, very important in the bank's operation. So we've identified a lot of added values that civil society brings to bank operations, some of which are like identifying and setting development priorities. For instance, in developing projects, we involve civil society in design of these projects to be able to bring their on-the-ground experience, their field experience into designing this project. We also have civil society's added value in monitoring and evaluation, where they are able to hold service providers and different stakeholders accountable for projects that are being carried out in different regional member countries. Civil society is also useful for community mobilization and sensitization. For instance, when we have projects and we need to get buy-in from these projects, we need civil society to be able to get to far to reach areas, to be able to mobilize beneficiaries, sensitize them about this project so that they're able to come out in mass and reap the benefits of projects being carried out in their community. And of course, we have advocacy and policy influencing, which is what we know civil society for, being able to advocate and influence policies that will help impact on development. We see these added values in the delivery of the bank's high fives. We see inclusion and participation, where we use local solutions to solve local problems. So we don't go out, we use civil society ideas and researches such as this that we're talking about today to solve local problems. So we can't go out to Uganda to get solutions from Uganda to solve problems in Kenya. You can also see civil society ownership within communities, so that communities are able to come and take ownership of projects. We see that I involve them in projects so that they are able to take ownership of projects being carried out in different regional member countries for the sake of sustainability. And we also involve civil society to reduce risk of failures of projects because of the on the ground experiences of civil society. Their ideas are relevant to the bank's operations, so that they tell us they give us ideas on things that we're supposed to do to reduce risk and to ensure that projects that were carried out in regional member countries succeed. We also have transparency and accountability, like I mentioned before, and we also see that projects that are being carried out in regional member countries with support of civil society organizations have maximum impact. At the bank, we have 4 work streams for enhancing civil society engagement. We have the first one, strengthening institutional capacity on civil society engagement. Currently, I mentioned that we are developing this civil society engagement strategy. We've gotten ideas from different stakeholders, including civil society, to be able to develop this strategy that will drive civil society engagement in the bank. We're also mapping out trust funds to design a civil society engagement funding mechanisms, which will allow civil society to be funded directly by the bank on certain projects. We are also developing an M&E framework and a CSC tracking system. This came on strongly in one of the civil society forums that we had, I think the one of 2020, that the bank develops an M&E forum that will help to track civil society engagement. We are currently working on that. We also overseen the CSO's bank committee. Currently, we have like 11 different departments that are represented in the bank committees, and we also have civil society organizations that are also represented in these committees, of which Machete is representing the East African Union, the East African continent. We also have the regional. Sorry, my colleague said her internet has issues and she will try to join back. Then we also have the regional and global CSOs forum. Last year we didn't have the annual forum that was really the norm at the bank. We had regional forums to bring closer to bring closer the dialogue at the regional level, and we had a very strong engagement from CSOs in East Africa. So the second pillar is mainstreaming civil society engagement into the bank's policies and operations, and currently we are working on different guidelines and tools that will ensure this. We are currently developing a guideline for mainstreaming civil society engagement. We have guidelines for organization of civil society open days and handling of civil society requests. We also have the bank database for civil society. Now, the bank's database for civil society is like a tool that helps civil society be visible to the bank. So, for instance, through the database, we are able to broadcast information like the call for proposal that Machete had mentioned initially. We shared it in the database and also shared it externally for those who are not registered in the database. I would really advise that CSOs gathered here today will try and register in the bank's database, because it gives you visibility to know what the bank is doing with regards to civil society engagement, to be able to get information on this call for proposals and other useful information. We also have another pillar is building capacity and knowledge management on civil society engagement. Currently, we are designing a capacity building program for internally for capacity building on civil society engagement. We have civil society engagement inductions and e-learning models for staff to be able to educate our staff on how to better engage with civil society. We also have the CSC training and guidance for civil society, which is like a training that would be carried out to help civil society organizations understand how to better engage with the bank. We hope that by the end of the year, most of these guidelines and tools will be rolled out and be put into use. Finally, we have improving communications and outreach on civil society engagement. We are designing a platform, an interactive platform for civil society online engagement. And so if you go to the website, you don't just see a platform, you don't just see the platform for civil society engagement, you see that the platform is kind of interactive. We also are designing a CSC communication guide that will help us communicate better on civil society engagement. So basically, this is all that we're doing with regards to civil society engagement. But in summary, I will just list a couple of tools that are being developed, and then that hopefully at the end of the year will be rolled out. We have the guidelines for CSC in for civil society engagement in CSPs and risk. We have the toolkit for CSC in projects. We have the CSC capacity building program. We have the guidelines for handling civil society engagement requests. We have the guidelines for civil society engagement in open days. We have the CSO's database, and we have online CSC interactive platform. So basically, that's all we are doing with regards to civil society engagement.